We are starting our fourth session out of four, our final session, which is a bit, I turn nostalgic with this kind of stuff, but I'm sure we are going still to collaborate and to cooperate a lot. So the topic for today would be to wrap up a bit the previous sessions, what we have been going on through in the last 3 weeks. And also make some remarks on some of the material you've been producing for the blog, and suggesting you or reminding you that we expect a post in the next week and a PDF document in 2 weeks with your proposal for the Hammer project, the Square of Estortuguet.
If it's not clear.
Okay, yeah, Francesco is going to go through these again with full detail, because at the end of the day, I'm not, I'm not the person in charge of this, but I just repeat like a little parrot what he told me. So here with me, we have Jose Luis.
Hi.
So we're going to, yeah, I had introduced you already, but maybe you can.
Okay.
So they know who you are. Okay. So we have 4 of us today. Shall we start with your, as usual, with I suggest to start with a round about how is your project, how is your research, or your are you developing your ideas, and then we might go into the contents of the last posts and the debate that we have generated. Or maybe we can do it the opposite. We can go into the debate first and then go through go to the projects themselves. So far, what I've seen in the post you have posted, they're quite, of course, very active, and we were really very happy with that, with the degree of activity and of participative interest that you have in this seminar. I think probably the most intense one is Christians, which it basically raises a range of issues and critical questions about the notion of participation. Christian makes a very interesting analysis, sort of he dissects a bit the concept of participation from a very postmodern perspective, with Barthes, Foucault, etc. And he makes very interesting questions to the notion of participation, which I think are quite relevant for us today. They're quite relevant for anyone, I think, interested in planning, because they basically establish a very important relation between discipline, action, and I would say space. What I found interesting about these posts is that basically he makes very open questions in which architecture as such is considered as an object, and the questions he makes are made to the concept or the object of architecture. And I think this is very important, because often we tend to think that architecture is an object. We tend to think that that buildings or interventions are objects by themselves. And I think the consequence, or one of the consequences of this project we're dealing with, is precisely to assimilate that we're diving into complexity. We're trying to think together. We're trying to put things together from multiple perspectives, from different disciplines, from different professional perspectives, from the perspectives of different actors, both users, different kind of users, stakeholders in general, so people interested in this topic. And I think it's something which is worth putting in the table and thinking about. There's also a very interesting issue, which is how different participants, and it looks a bit like a mirror effect. So you put two mirrors, one in front of the other, and there's an infinite reflection of both things. He mentions about the notion of proactive multispace, with all this idea of misreadings of the participants, how each participant, each person literally that has access to a piece of information or the project itself, or yes, probably uses the space by itself, becomes a participant and has a different perception, a different interpretation of that space. And I think this is quite important, because participation is not just about an individual, putting some, adding some input into a project or doing something as an individual, but it's also about consent, it's about discussion, it's about collective decision making, it's about sharing, confronting, managing conflict, and agreeing. I think that's one of the big elements that participation it's about. So I think this is a very, very interesting question, because as Agatha was mentioning in her suggestion, in her post, it is about the different ways in which participation, public space is perceived, considered in different parts of Europe, and definitely in different parts of the world. So therefore, in a lot of contexts, we find participation something which should be done, on a kind of individual basis towards the institution, and that's probably the most tempting and seductive participation for a lot of authorities, because it's the most harmless, it's the less conflicted. It's just like, okay, let's take information, let's take your opinion, and we'll think about it. When participation includes debate, includes questioning, includes decision-making, collective decision-making, then it is when things are put on the table, and conflict between actors, between the stakeholders, and definitely with the public administration or the authority might show up. And this conflict is almost never desired by the local administration or public administration in general. So I think that's a very relevant contribution. Just to close with this big round, I think it's also very interesting how there's another question, and I think this is a bit naive, Christian, because we talked about it already, but I think it still should be put on the table, which is, it's architecture political, and what do you think about it? Is architecture political? Question marks. What do you think about it? I open the question for you.
Yeah, thank you. I think so. Of course, when you are dealing with allocation and organization of resources, then it's easily becomes a political question. Also, the question of how to distribute resources, that is the starting point for a political discussion or political bargaining. So yes, and of course, architecture and planning is by its nature is about how to use resources, in what way, how you plan to use it through a timeline, and for each users, actors, people that will have different degree accessibility for the resources.
Any other contribution? It was an open question to everyone, so.
You can say something.
Yeah, I mean, Jose Luis is very keen on talking.
Well, not very keen, but I can say my own experience. It's like, for me, architecture is absolutely political, because, for example, we always faced any kind of we are architects, but we face any kind of project in an absolutely political way. So when we don't know what to do, I always say, I mean, if we are a team of people, okay, let's start with some ideology. So we already know how we want to. I mean, in general, we have our own ideology, and I think it's quite good to start with some fixed things. I mean, it's always like we have been educated as architects that we have to deal with the creativity and also like everything like more open. I mean, to deal with like quite open questions. But I really find that when a problem is more closed, you have more things that are fixing you what to do. I think maybe the best projects are coming from something which is absolutely conditioned by lots of things. And I always try to focus from the point of view of ideology. For example, for us, and this is a political decision, is like we always faced a project from public space, for example. Even if we have to do a private space, we always focused on public areas. And I think that's also like a political way of facing creating architecture. So for me, and it's not only, I mean, I think like what Christian said about resources, just maybe one of the aspects that are involving the decision that you have to take during the process of a project. But I mean, a project, since it's dealing the city, and the city is such a complex thing, there are lots of the decisions, and of course, for us, is also creating architecture is absolutely managing the existing resources, but is dealing lots of other layers. And one of it is maybe to have like an ideology, how to focus, how to start working on something, how to, for example, this idea that I was trying to communicate of always starting from how can we improve the common, even if we are facing from something which is not absolutely based on that.
Yeah, I think that's a good good approach, and something which I left behind before, which I think is also quite interesting, is this idea of what he calls the corresponding space. So basically to assess how participation, it is about participation and time. Should we formulate the evolution of preferences so we have the chance of participating several times along a process in which our preferences or the way we think about a particular project might evolve. So how we should, this is something I have never thought about. I think I always have very clear that participation is a dynamic process, but it's sometimes some decisions are subject to a specific part of a project, of a participatory project or process, but not really to go into it along the time. I would think that the dynamics of participation have more to do with the actual subject of participation, how it evolves its use or its nature, but not so much about the opinion of people. So I think that was quite interesting. So what do you think, Rosanna? What do you think about these elements we've been mentioning?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfectly.
Okay. I think it's a complicated question if architecture is politic or politician, because in my opinion we try to adapt it requirements on people or requirements or politicians or municipality, and it depends for us, for architects, that try to combine political and ideas and people ideas, I think.
Agatha, what are you saying? You're very silent. Oh, Agatha is... pero se ha unido el chat. Okay, I think we have missed Agatha. Okay, you're with her.
She's trying to connect. Yes.
Okay. Agatha is coming in a minute or something. Okay, so that would be a bit the first round of our the contributions and the debate. Also, I think it's quite interesting to what Agatha, our absent now, actually, hopefully listening to us, has mentioned about the different participatory cultures. But I think we should talk about that later. Also, there's an interesting mention of Eva, which is not here today, and she excuses her presence, about the reflection of the different connections, something we've talked about before, different connections with of the square with the environment, and she adds a lot of very interesting maps and cartographies, which I think are quite interesting. There's not much to say about that, but I think it's just something we have been talking about, and she has put it into graphics. So how are your projects going on? Do you want to add something to that? Do you want to make some comments on your work and maybe open a debate or ask questions?
Yeah, can I say something? Ask question? Yeah. Yeah, I had this quite theoretical overall approach to the issue most of the time in the process. So, and I think some of the I was mentioning earlier that I was interested in maybe develop some kind of toolkit for participation. And now I think some of my focus is about more in like a toolkit for the planning issues. Like I'm interested in like, okay, when you have this process of participation, you collect or you reveal a big number of information about like the needs and the preferences and the meanings from the participants. And I think it's for me, I'm very interested in this question of how to deal with this kind of disagreement, if there are disagreement between the participants. When you have the process of participation, and then this will probably, I guess, show that, okay, you find some ideas or wishes or needs that actually are not possible to combine or are not compatible. How do you can cope with this one? So in this sense, I've been trying to study and read about like some kind of models or schemes for this kind of conflict handling. So I think that will be my some of my final project. What I'm going to deliver is some kind of tool for how to cope with or handle this kind of disagreements. More than what I maybe was talking about before, making it like a toolkit for participation related to the actual, as a matter of like physical objects or architecture.
Okay, hi Agatha, are you back? Agatha, are you there? Can you listen to us? Yeah.
Do you want to say something?
Yeah, you want to say something?
It's working.
Agatha, can you want to contribute something about the debate we're talking about? We were just elaborating on Christian's ideas, and also we mentioned your own inputs about the different cultures or the different attitudes toward participation in different, as you mentioned, different parts of Europe. What is the experience in your country? Agatha, are you there? Okay. What a pity. Anyway, so Rosanna, what about you? What do you think? What is the culture, the attitudes, the cultural attitude about participation in your country?
Well, in my country, participation is tried to restrict or to restrict it because in government try to create a commune or it's like a commune. No, it's like a hammer. No, it's a French commune. It's like this. In my country, it's named consejos comunales, and try to do a participation with a rule. Now these consejos comunales are a joint of towns or joint of squares or communities that meet and discuss their problems and try to find solutions. In that moment, I work with a different consejos comunales, and it is rare because people try to impose her opinion, and usually find a solution is difficult. For example, all people needs water, all people needs waste system, and is rare. I think consejos comunales is try to form to search a form now. It's complicated to explain that, but it's interesting.
No, it was my fault. I had my microphone mute, as Francesco always asks me to do so. My question is this communal? It's his fault actually. These communal councils, do they take decisions in a participative way about the distribution of resources and among people? Is that what you mentioned?
It's about your question is about that community councils or consejos comunales try to administrate the resource.
Try to what? Okay. Yeah, to administrative resources, like where for the whole community. Yeah, that was my question. So because we're talking about, if this is the case, we're talking about, and this is very interesting. We here in the case of Hamar, and I guess in most cases in European cities, participation is addressed towards sort of specific issues, not general issues of distribution of resources and allocation of resources, but just about something which is going to happen, an intervention or maybe a policy or something like that. But in this case, it's obviously a much more intense field for participation and much more challenging in terms of agreement, decision-making, etc. So how do these consejos comunales have specific tools to reach consensus?
It depends about consejos comunales. Each consejo comunales have a particular tools for participation. When but these consejos comunales find a tools with government organisms. For example, Ministry of Science and Technology or Education. It's with these organisms. I don't know.
Francesco wants to come from his dark corner and contribute to the debate.
Hi everybody.
Okay, I think this very interesting debate. One of the main purpose of this online workshop is to discuss these issues with different point of view from your different countries. I would like also to maybe to I don't know just to go on with to progress with the work. I would like to propose to maybe something that Agatha already started. I'm going to tell about her project because she's not there. She has difficult problem with connection. I'm with her in the chat. And what she's doing is quite interesting, and I encourage you to maybe to integrate this kind of approach in your work, because what she's doing actually is that instead she wrote a post in which she tried to connect every single idea we produced during the workshop, and she tries to connect these ideas and to produce a coherent and a coherent project, coherent proposal for StarTarget using other participants' approach. So I think this is the main feature, the main objective of network design process. And so I would like, for instance, Christian, who is working on something very specific on methodology for participation, maybe to try to integrate in his work what Agatha is doing or what Rosanna is doing. I also invite you to go to the Tactical Urbanist blog, where Sarah is doing something similar. She produced a very interesting diagram in which she tried to make a mind map or a conceptual map of everything we have been producing. I think this is the main challenge for such an experience. And by the way, I think for us, for here at Ecosistema Urbano, this is the main point now, because we need to keep track of everything we have been produced, and somehow try to use this for one project and one proposal, or one maybe very specific thing we are going to produce for StarTarget. I guess that Jose, maybe you would like to say something about that, because this is what we are going to do starting by January, no?
Yes.
Like to summarize.
I know maybe you already discussed about this. This is like something that appears. I mean, when we are having like meetings in which we are discussing. I mean, which is with this idea of the methodology. We always face to the question if we are there to collect ideas or if we are there to open debate. Mm-hmm. This is mainly what we are trying to do, is obviously collecting ideas in order to avoid mistakes. We really realize that, I mean, mistakes in which we don't have in our mind when we are doing the project. Lots of things that are important for Hammer. For example, we did an installation in the opening event, and suddenly there were the people from the Association of Blind People were complaining because we placed different stones in the square that were not regularly placed. And we realized that, I mean, part of the layers of the city arise by this simple thing that we did, this simple action. So we realized that there is a layer there of people who's paying attention to what kind of obstacles they can find in the design, and they are absolutely concerned about what will be our proposals for the future StarTarget. So I see it in a way that we have to open the debate, but also it's a moment in which we are implementing physical changes, like temporary changes in the square, and this is a way in order to realize that there are lots of more layers of complexity there that we didn't pay attention during the preliminary design process, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of the. I think that's one of the virtues of participation to generate new interpretations of a given project. Not only to contribute to build that project, to design that project, or even to propose it if we go step before, but also when the project is being designed, is being even implemented, or just some actions are being put into the street as incentives for participation, which is the case Jose is mentioning. It is very interesting how this permanent flow of opinions, of inputs is, and I think this is a very nice way of doing things, is defining the drift of the project, where the drift is going. Sometimes you think that your project is going somewhere, and in the way there are different inputs. And I think this is an excellent example of blind people, and accessibility, which is something when we tend to neglect very much. So we have mentioned this before. There are all these vulnerable groups, or these groups don't necessarily have to be extremely vulnerable, but they have different conditions of different relations with the space than most people have, and they have to be listened to. They have also to raise their voice, and we're talking about aged people, we're talking about handicapped people, with blind people, people with a mobility disability, we're talking about children, we're talking about teenagers. But at the end of the day, we're talking about most of the groups we can think about. And so we were saying the other day, probably except middle-aged guys, which is basically the responsible, traditionally, historically, they have been the responsible of designing the city. The other constellation of actors that intervene in the public space have a say, and they have things to contribute. And it is very exciting to see how the different stakeholders, the different actors, the different groups that use the space, agree together about the diagnosis. What are the common problems? They find suddenly that they have common problems. They have common solutions, they have common hopes, and this is what makes a project turns into a great project, which I think is the case of.
I would also add something like this is an experience connected to this. At first, what happened is that they started to. We did this because also maybe you already know, but what we were trying is just to experiment also physical changes in the square in order that the citizen of Hamar realize of things that could happen in the future, and then that they are going to have opinion about it, and they are going to give us some data. What happened is that at first, when we did this physical change in the square, they came to the newspapers in order to. They were kind of angry because. They could find these kind of stones in the middle of the square, and maybe they could fall in the floor. But so that we fixed. At first it's also us complaining, just saying, well, what these people are thinking is like. They think that it's better to walk in between cars. This was our first. Our first impression of them complaining, going to the newspapers. So what happened later is that we arranged a meeting with the commune in between. Belinda was our colleague in Hamar, was in the meeting yesterday, and she started to explain to them. At first everyone was a bit like complaining each other, but then we started trying to explain them what was about the whole project. And what happened at the end is that they felt that they shouldn't keep on complaining about the project, and they thought that they should join the project. So I think that's that's an experience, because usually what happens is that we implement like definitive physical changes with our work as urbanists or as architects, and we collect some inputs back, some feedback from the citizens. Most of the time are, there are always compliments, but there are also like a lot of people that is against different aspects of the project. But there is never this moment in which we can have like an agreement, because the transformation is already done. There is no possibility, because of bureaucracy, because of budget, because of so many aspects, there is no possibility of changes. So now we know that that we can more or less reach to an agreement, and we have learned lots of things from this process also. Okay.
Yes, I think that what Jose is explaining is very interesting. Just before I was talking about what's the network design process in the creation phase is, and I think that what Jose is explaining is that the main difference, and please Andres correct me if I'm wrong, because you are an expert in participation. I think the main difference between this network design process and a traditional or participation process is this kind of urban action, very quick, instant. Maybe we can call them instantaneous architecture. I don't know if we can say that. And I think this is the one point very strong of what we are trying to do, just to create reaction between citizens, among citizens. And I think it fits very well with Norwegian culture, because we have noticed that we had a problem there, because it was quite difficult to move people to participation, and this community of citizens is the main agent of this process. So I think it's very important. Okay, Agatha, is it working now?
I think that yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfectly. So, okay.
But I don't have any idea about what was the.
Me neither.
And I don't have the streaming and nothing.
Okay, so now it's working very well. So maybe you can tell us about the project, your proposal that you are working on.
Now I looked at my post that I did, and I tried to separate them, and some join them, and to make it like a point of the one project, and enrich it with the information and knowledge from the post of the other persons, and from the on-site workshops, the knowledge, and try to do some proposal on the end of the workshop, which will be composed of all these things together. So that's what I do now.
Did you have a look to the post by Sarah in Tactical Urbanism?
Yeah.
Because she's trying something similar. So I don't know if you think about integrating a Tactical Urbanism contribution also. I think it would be interesting if you want, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that yes, the aspects of the because they had this their workshop divided in four main points. So I think that this aspect of storytelling and archive, and I find it now that it's joined with my images, and I try to do it like all one thing. I think that now I see that it's all about one project. I realized it in the last what I wrote in the last post, that it's really one big thing, and it's really inspiring for me.
I think it's very interesting how we have been converging into common conceptual fields, and I think this is very worth. I just have a look to this amazing thing that someone has done. Sarah has done in the in Tactica, and I'm overwhelmed. I know. I wish I could do that when I grow up. It's probably it's what software is that? Is that with?
Sorry?
Which program is that with?
It's a mix of programs, network design software,
Wow, that's very impressive. So, and I think it's very, very useful because I have all my notes that I'm taking every day, and I like to write them like in the old school paper thing.
I have all wall with notes.
Exactly. I have my little folder and I just spread around stuff. But I think this is very interesting, and probably we had a very, very rich outcome of an intellectual mind map of the group, and I think that would be a really nice outcome of these project. I would also like to say I tried to ask you a couple of times, Agatha, about your contribution, about the different perceptions of participation in different parts of Europe. What is your experience in Poland? How does participation, how it is dealt by authorities? How do people demand it or not? What's your experience?
My experience from my city, I lived 25 years in Gdańsk. It's north of Poland.
Yeah.
I think that we have a big problem with the public space in a city, because one of the main square, which is just near when you have to enter to the old town, you have the big square with theater and old Academy of Fine Arts, which is in an old one building, and in my main Gold Gate, and the square is parking. So, and there are many years and many projects to convert it into some place that we have some. It's a little bit similar to Stotoget, because we have the some events there during the Easter time and during the Christmas time, but there is only, and it's more than it's kind of not really a good image for the city, and because it's situated on the entrance of Academy of Fine Arts, so we had really disgusting feelings of all this event like that, because it's, you can buy all the it's it's really not good one, and it's another problem which I see in my city is that we have a lot of backyards in the old town, which are open to the public, to the main streets, and they're not used, and we are only one city. I think that in Poland, it's normally these backyards are used as an extension of the public spaces of some terrace for cafes, something like that, some theaters. And in Gdańsk, owners of these backyards are inhabitants. So it's a funny thing that they don't want to give it away to the public use, but they also don't use it. So it's just abandoned place in a city center, and in many places like that in other city in Poland, like in Krakow, in Warsaw, there in every city these spaces are used, and we have and it's also the political aspect of that, because we have president of for who whatever I remember only one, so and it's problem because there are no opportunity to choose anybody else, because it's not because so I think that there are a lot of competition which try to change redesign these spaces, but they are not going into real life, and it's a big problem.
You raised a very interesting point, which is public spaces as something which are private, public, but also as something that should be or can be appropriated by the city or by the residents, by the citizens when they're not used. And I think there's a big movement of that in Europe at the nowadays, and even in the States. That's very strong there too. So maybe this is not just a strict topic, but I can try to send you a few links, because it's a very fascinating topic, and I'm very interested in that today. I mean, in Madrid and in Barcelona, there's a lot of stuff going on in Madrid, and there's some things starting to go on in Barcelona, which I think is very exciting. So I'll try to send you something about that. Okay, thank you. That's a really interesting stuff. Rosanna, what would be your contribution? How is your project? Your idea? What can you sort of elaborate a bit on that for us?
Okay, I have 3 points that I want to share you. The first is needs to work in a public space net, because Tortuguet, in my opinion, needs to be fed by another public spaces. It's important, but it's not essential. And another point, I visualize to Tortuguet when our compendium of what Hamar can offer in my idea for Hamar in a big scale, you know. And 3 point, it's a question. Find the way how can Tortuguet could be approach to the lake. I don't know if have a maritime transportation in some months of the year. For the moment, there are 3 points in my idea. I can.
Sorry. Okay. I think they're very clear and straightforward ideas, and I really like the one of the third one, the approach to the lake, which definitely is probably if it's treated, adequately, it definitely would change I think it can change the fate of the square and the fate, to some extent, also the fate of the city, or not the fate, but the identity of the city, of the way the city is looked at from outside, and also the way the city is looked at from inside. Probably Christian can agree or disagree with this more accurately than I can, but I think it's a key issue, and I've been actually, I don't know why, it's in my mind all the time. So when I'm in my motorbike in Madrid, I'm always thinking in how to overlap the trucks in an elegant way without making big infrastructure works, but at the other time providing an access to the people to the water, which is actually one of the attractions, as a guy mentioned the other day, of the city, because it has one of the oldest steamboats operating still in Europe, which is mid-19th century. So definitely it is a very, very important aspect. So Christian, could you just elaborate a little bit on your project? You got me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you very, very weakly.
I didn't hear your question. Can you...
Folks, can you, Rosanna, Agatha, can you hear him? Can you listen? Can you, no? Christian, I'm sorry, we cannot hear you. I'm sorry. Okay. Listen, Christian, I'm sorry, we cannot hear you. So it's impossible. We cannot hear you. We see you pretty well, but we cannot hear you. And so now, let's see now. We can hear you very, very low, very, very low. It's impossible to understand you. Okay, if you don't, I'm sorry. If you don't mind, I'm going to give a word to Jose because he has something to say about the connection between the city and the square and the lake. So maybe this adds something. Okay, maybe we try in 5 minutes, Christian. Okay.
Okay. Well, Francesco told me that in this workshop and also yes, and also in the other workshop, the tactical urbanism, there are a lot of people concerned about the relationship between the space of the square and also the lake. Since it's too closed, that maybe it looks like it's. I mean, obviously it's important, but what happened in Hamar is that the train, like the line of the train, is absolutely cutting the relationship of the city with the lake. So it's not this kind of from Google Earth. We are architects. We are usually used to look at the city and see what the geometry or everything from very far away. So from above, it looks like quite a bucolic scenario. But what happened there is that we have these lines of train which are absolutely cutting the relationship between the urban scenario of the square and also with the lake. So I really think that, and also is even if it looks like in the Google Earth pictures absolutely closed to the lake, and it's close, but it's far enough to be, I think, like something else. It's not so close relation between the square and the lake. So I really think what happens is that in the upper part of the as you know, there is like a slope, like more or less around 4%. This means that we have like around a difference of 4 meters between the south part of the square and the north part of the square. And this means also, yes, this means also that the Bazaar building, which is the historical building, it looks like historical building, it's a building from the 19th century, that is more or less cutting this connection. But I don't think it's only the Bazaar building, which is only 1 story high. I think that we are in a more like sensation. Yeah, the sensation you have when you are in the Start is that you are not so close and you are not so related to the lake. You can always have the point of view of the upper part of the northern part of the square in which you can see the lake. That's why I think lots of people in the workshops, and also, I mean, the most direct action is just we want to see the lake because there is like a need of the lake in Hamar, like, because this historical, I mean, to have the line of the train there, just in the limit in between the water and the town, is like that there is like a need of connection with the lake from the city, but this lack of connection is everywhere. That's why I think everyone is talking about the connection between the lake and the square, but I don't think that's there is like a huge importance, because we can be more close to the lake, and this necessity of being more in contact with the lake would arise more strongly. That's why I think, for example, there are lots of projects and approaches in which I mean, we are doing platforms in order to see the lake of this kind of stuff, because we already collected lots of ideas in which people was talking about more direct connection with the lake. But and this is my criticism of this, is that all of them are always thinking about contemplative uses of the square, and I don't really think that this square needs is lacking of contemplative uses. Is absolutely different. There is a lack of activity, and there is also a lack, since everybody is looking at this main space in the city as a place for parking place, is that there is like a need of reinvention of this space, but I don't think that contemplative uses are good for this reinvention of the city center. I think we have to focus more on uses that are creating interaction between the citizens of the city.
Well, I think before you just to finish, I think it's a very interesting mixture of how a city was designed 150 years ago, more or less, by the military as part of a policy to provide with some urban infrastructure a given area of the country, and how it was, of course, it was built on top of something that already existed, but it had a very prefabricated layout. And of course, in that layout, the lake was just a resource. It was not an active or added value for the city, because it was a city which was designed for a use. It was designed for very specific purposes. And now what we are debating, and this is what adds a lot of interest to this case, is that we're debating how to reinvent with that specific urban fabric which we have inherited. How can we make of it a city for the citizens, and a city that the citizens feel proud of and want to come to live to? And how can we, to some extent, reinvent somehow the identity or certain aspects of the identity of the city for residents, for visitors, for people coming in from basically the rest of the world, because this is what we deal with cities now, to be put in the map. So I think it's a quite interesting trade-off between the given city and the city to be built, or the city to be dreamt. Okay, so Francesco wants to add something to close, and I will leave you here. Bye-bye, and see you tomorrow. Well, this is a real bye-bye, isn't it? Oh my God. Thank you for being with us. It's a pity some people have to drop. Susana from Madrid had to drop, and the Limerick contingent, it's somewhere else. I don't know exactly, but we'll say bye-bye to them personally. And thank you for your support, your contributions, and definitely your inputs into this common dividend we have built up. And well, you know where we are here in Madrid, where you have your home here or in the city of Madrid itself. So I will be very happy to see you. I probably will see some of you because Christian is, despite he looks very Norwegian, he's also in Madrid. So we might meet soon. I'm looking forward to that. And the same for you, Agata. Same for you, Rosanna. You know, when we have friends and colleagues here, okay? And we'll keep in touch, because you need to give us post and your project proposal, which Francesco is going to talk about that. So see you very soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
Okay, just to remind you a few things. First of all, okay, I'm sorry for Agata has always problem with connection during the workshop, and Christian with his microphone, and Rosanna also she had some problem. So let's try to work using also the blog and email. If you have question, Agata, Christian, and Rosanna, you know that we are here. We can help you, and Bess also can give you some help if you need something else. And after that, just to remind you, the notes I've sent you by email, we suggest a 3-step submission. So the first step is the post that we expect for next week. There's the second step is the PDF. We are asking for as a more developed proposal, and after that, if you want, you can make a short video. But as I already told you, it's just a suggestion. You are very free in the way you want to submit your proposal, and I'm gonna repeat that it's not you are not obliged to make a project. You can just tell about your experience or tell about methodology. But we also wait for ideas, you know. So it's very open. Just don't be afraid for the format.